When the primary emotions of the heart reflect themselves in the innate level of the soul, so a phenomenon occurs which is called sikelet yadav, that the right hand is placed on the left knee and the left hand is placed on the right knee. This is a phenomenon that occurred when Yaakov Avinu, Jacob, blessed the two sons of Yosef, Ephraim and Menashe. So he crossed his hands as he blessed them. And the implication in the soul is that the power of the right hand, which is chesed, which we identified in our nutrition with the carbohydrates, actually goes or shines its light and life force to the left knee, which is hold is sincerity and acknowledgement, thanksgiving. And the left hand, which is might, it directs its energy to the right knee, which is netzach, which is victory, meaning that the proteins go from left to right, whereas the carbohydrates go from right to left. So this is an additional, very important understanding of the way the nutrition, the nutrients work in our bodies. And we're just saying very, very in short, just this one point that has to be contemplated. But the simple understanding is that from the proteins, the might, a person is victorious and becomes eternal in nature, in his innate characteristics. Whereas from the carbohydrates, which are the loving kindness of the soul, a person enlivens his ability to acknowledge and give thanks for all the goodness that God does with us, for all the goodness that our fellow man does with us, to be able to express thanks. One last small point is that sometimes in the sphira of hod, which is sincerity, there can be a phenomenon of illness, of sickness. It says that hodi ne'epach alei l'mashrit. And in certain types of illness, of physical illness, so sometimes it's necessary to diminish, even to delete carbohydrates. For instance, if a person is suffering from diabetes or other illnesses, less bread, less carbohydrates. That can be understood very, very deeply and easily, actually, if one understands the significance of the sphira of hod, which, as we just now said, the right arm goes to the left knee. That's the image in Kabbalah. So now we'll say a few words about evolution. That's the second topic that I understand is going to be addressed in the seminar. The Arizal, the greatest of the Mekubalim, does not explicitly speak of the species evolving physically one from the other in the course of history, but he does speak and explain in depth that between the different levels of life there are always intermediate states of being. And the most important example that he gives is that between the animal kingdom and the human being, the intermediate is the kof, which is the monkey. Meaning that the monkey, in a certain way, existentially connects the animal kingdom, the animal world, to the human being, because he's the intermediate. So this sounds almost just like Darwin, like evolution. Obviously it's not exactly the same, but the image is very, very clear that God creates the world, that between the different levels of life there are intermediate states, and the most important intermediate state is the monkey, the kof. In the terminology of the sages of Chazal, which preceded more than 1,000 years before the Arizal. So we find the idiom kikuf bifnei adam, as a monkey in the face, meaning instead, actually, of a human being. That a monkey tries to appear or thinks maybe I'm a human being, but really he's just a monkey, he's not a human being. That's called kikuf bifnei adam. What is the source, the origin of this expression, this idiom? The sages teach us that once more things are relative, that the most beautiful of women in what we will call the period of civilization that began with the patriarchs and the matriarchs. Actually, the first matriarch was Sarai Imenu, Sarah, the first of the mothers of the Jewish nation, was the most beautiful of women. But nonetheless, Chazal say, the sages say, that she, in comparison to Eve, the very first woman who was created directly by the hands of God, Sarah bifnei Chava kikov bifnei Adam. The Chazal begin and say that everyone in the world, every human being, in comparison, in the face of Sarah, is like a monkey in the face of man. But Sarah herself, in the face of Chava, is like a monkey in the face of man. And Chava herself, Eve, in the face of Adam, was even more directly created from the palms, as it were, of God, is also like a monkey in the face of man. And even Adam himself, the first man, in the face of the divine presence, is also a monkey in the face, or in comparison to man. Kikuf bifnei Adam, that's the expression. So we find this is a very important idiom in Chazal, in the sages. The comparison, or from this stream of sayings, we see that it's a relative process, that everything is relative. That everyone in the face of Sarah is kikov bifnei Adam, and she in the face of Chava is kikov bifnei Adam, and Chava in the face of Adam is kikov bifnei Adam, and Adam himself in the face of the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is kikov bifnei Adam. The word kov, monkey, is very similar in Hebrew, and actually it says it's derived from the same subroot of the word klipa. Klipa is the shell around a fruit, is a shell. Whenever you have an inner treasure, the fruit is like an inner treasure, but there's something that's hiding it and covering it up. On the outside, that's a shell over a fruit. So it says that actually the very presence, or the very, even we'll call it the philosophy of the monkey, which is the philosophy of evolution, itself is a shell, a klipa that covers an inner fruit. That inner fruit is the essence of truth, the essence of truth, the way God created the world. So in this, trying to say in great shortness, this is one way to understand that the whole theory of evolution, which is how we call it the theory of monkeys, because it all has to do with one thing, as it were, deriving and evolving from a previous life form, a previous species. That itself, the philosophy in and of itself, is a kof, it's a monkey in the face in comparison to man. The Torah is called man. And the klipa covers the man. It also protects. It allows for the man inside to develop. But when the man is completely well developed, then just like an egg, that the afroach, the little bird, has to break through the shell of the egg in order to reveal himself. That's the messianic revelation of creation, which breaks through the shell, the monkey of the theory of evolution, and reveals the true secret of Hashem's continual creation of the world. Let's conclude with one very, very important thought that several years ago, and actually many times in recent history, all of the great scientists of the world, like all the Nobel Prizes of the world, actually made a vote. Who was the greatest scientist in the last several centuries? There were two. There are always, whenever this is done, there are two candidates. Who is the greatest? Who made the greatest impression on the world? One candidate is Darwin. The theory of evolution made the greatest impression on science and on the whole world from his time until the present day. It doesn't matter whether the theory of evolution is exactly the same as it used to be, or it itself goes through evolution. It definitely has evolved over the last 2 centuries, a century and a half. The other candidate is Einstein. And so there's a lot of discussion and even conflict, we can say, between who is the greatest, who made the greatest impression. Obviously, the two minds, Darwin and Einstein, are two different minds. One is biology, the other is physics, pure physics, theoretical physics. So once more, some say Darwin and some say Einstein. But from what we just explained, we can understand a very, very deep and important relationship. What did Einstein bring to the world? He brought to the world the theory of relativity. That everything is relative. Time and space go together, it's all relative. What we just now said is that evolution is also, biologically, it's a relativity theory. Because everything, whether you're a monkey, whether you're a man, it's relative. You can be a monkey to a man, but that man is a monkey to some other man. That's exactly the initial saying of the sages. That he is a monkey in the face of him, but he, the man, is a monkey in the face of someone else. Meaning that the whole, once more, the philosophy of evolution is biological relativity. So that's why these two greatest minds were actually doing two different things altogether, but they definitely possess a common denominator. That the common denominator is relativity, and then now returning to what we explained before, the way Kabbalah explains Kikuf bifnei Adam, a monkey in the face of man, it means that everything has over itself a shell. And the shell in the beginning protects and makes able the inner life to grow and develop and to mature. But when it's mature enough, it breaks through the shell. So the wisdom of the Mashiach is actually the ultimate man breaking through the shell of evolution, and also coming to the true understanding even today. Not many people, scientists, the greatest scientists, Einstein said that maybe I and one other person in the world understand what relativity is, certainly quantum mechanics even more so. But definitely within that, within all the theories, there is an inner man who is developing and growing and maturing within the science. And when Mashiach comes, he will shoot out and be revealed.